there?
There was once a boy who fell to earth and found himself in a dark interior forest of shadow and bone from which he feared he might never return.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, obviously it's a personal story. It's about what happened to a young boy who contracted late onset epilepsy at the age of 12, and the drugs they gave him, which were all the wrong drugs. And it's also the mother's story, because she was his carer and she had to kind of look after him the whole time. But at the same time, when we started making the film, we thought, it's not just our story, it's not just Chris and Emma and Louis, it's actually a wider story about mothers and their children, and what happens to mothers who go through similar experiences.
He made hundreds of these journeys and came back less of the child he'd once been and more like a pioneer of deep inner space.
We could have done a sort of reality TV thing, but I thought, no, it's because of what Louis went through and the terrible hallucinations he suffered during medical withdrawal. I thought it's a film about altered states. It's about that other world that we know nothing about, in terms of people understand very little of how the brain works. They understand more about the world than the brain. So I thought it should have a kind of sociological, political dimension. So that's what I saw my job as, trying to bring some distance to the film, because the subject is, both very near and far away. So this was the aesthetic behind the film. And also wanting to make a film. I mean, something that was like a piece of, it's not Netflix. It's a proper piece of cinema.
All machines are standing still. Listen like mine.
I thought you needed a really good soundtrack to lift the film, but also it should be pieces of music that speak to the film, and the film speaks to the music, so it's part of the fabric of the film, not just some song we've kind of slapped on.
Come on. Can you wake up? Can you wake up? Sweetheart, come on.
When asked what his film is about, the father says nothing is written, beyond having a map reference for a location regarding an old dead spy master, one of the most secretive men who ever lived. Plus literary gunslingers and gentleman dopers on mind-bending trips. Time future contained in time past. The same old story, he shrugs. What gets remembered and what gets forgotten. And in terms of his son, what he doesn't remember because of what the drugs did.
Sweetheart?
I was a little bit nervous about coming here, because I thought, there'll be many more kind of political films about sort of Gaza or Ukraine, where the problem may be insoluble, but it's much more obvious. And I thought this is sort of somewhere between the personal and the universal, and we hope that it can open the subject up to discussion, because epilepsy is very under-researched. It's not a fashionable illness. There's a lot of prejudice. And Louis says in the film that if he'd been born in Germany in the 1930s, he would have been part of their euthanasia program. He would have been taken away and gassed. And there's still a lot of prejudice towards the subject. And we thought, if we can open that up and get people to discuss it and make connections with organizations that are dealing with it, then I hope there's some platform to open up the dialogue.